All right. Let's get into this whole Digital Hula thing.
Yeah.
This Doza Crew album, man. You really went all out finding stuff for this deep dive.
It's a lot, yeah. But it all connects, I think. You've got the album, obviously, with that track, Heiter bis wolkig. That's the one with Kairam, right?
Right. And then, where you found some YouTube commentary, even like a full transcript from some podcasts.
Deep cut stuff, yeah. It's
Yeah.
the whole Doza Crew mythos they're trying to piece together.
A mythos.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like listening to this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
each song is hinting at something bigger.
It's world building for sure.
But before we get too deep into that, digital hellscape and all that, maybe we should back up a sec. Doza Crew. They're from Ostfriesland, yeah.
That's right.
Not exactly the first place you think of for like cutting edge rap music.
And that's kind of the point, isn't it? Makes them stand out. Ostfriesland. It's this coastal region in Germany, kind of isolated, kind of rough.
Okay.
I think tough fishing communities, battling the elements, this real sense of resilience.
You can hear that in their music too, right?
Yeah.
Like in those tracks, what was it, Düsterduel?
Definitely Düsterduel.
And BKRDN Platt.
Oh, yeah, BKRDM Platt. That one's in Low German, by the way, which adds a whole nother layer.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, it's this regional dialect, almost its own language, spoken in parts of northern Germany, the Netherlands. It's a statement for them to rap in that, not just a style thing.
Huh. So it's like even more specific than just representing Germany. It's this particular region.
Exactly, showing their roots. And BKRDN Platt, the energy in that track, man, it's raw. It's got this defiant feel.
There's that line, I was looking at it earlier, something like, always through the dust and the trees roar, with friends in the night where I want to rage.
Yeah, you get that sense of their world right there. Rebellious, maybe a little dangerous.
But the friends, that's important too, right? Like they're in it together.
Absolutely. Loyalty, that sense of community, it's huge in their music. And it makes sense coming from a place like Ostfriesland, where you got to rely on each other to face those harsh winds, literally.
Okay, so we've got this, grounding in the real world, right? But then there's Digital Hull, which is taking us somewhere else entirely. So how do these things connect? Like, we're not talking about windswept coastlines anymore.
I think that's the genius of it. They take that same resilience, that defiance, and apply it to this digital world. It's like new challenges, new demons, but that core spirit is still there.
All right, but what about all these characters? I feel like I need a Doza Crew encyclopedia or something.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. You've got the Klotman, the Sandman, the Trumterran.
Right. It's world building, but it gets kind of confusing.
That's where that podcast transcript you found comes in handy. It's like they've been obsessing over this stuff, connecting the dots.
So is there a story they're telling? Like, are they fighting evil or what?
It's not that simple. The podcast talks about this idea of Doza Crew being caught between worlds, the real one, Ostfriesland, and this digital hellscape they've created.
Oh, okay. So it's not like straightforward good versus evil or anything.
Right. And these characters, the Klotman especially, he's like a guide through this whole thing, or maybe a trickster leading them astray.
Let's talk about the Klotman for a sec. He pops up everywhere, right? Kadar, Kabogagar, even Heiter bis wolkig, the new track.
He's all over the place. The podcast describes him as this ancient entity existing in both the physical and digital worlds. Sometimes he's helping Doza Crew, sometimes he's working against them. It's ambiguous.
Like a Loki character, right? From Norse mythology,
Yeah.
causing chaos, pulling strings.
Exactly. And it's so interesting how they blend those mythological elements with modern anxieties about technology.
Yeah, that's what kind of creeps me out, but also makes me want to listen more, Like it's tapping into something primal, but it's also about stuff we're dealing with right now.
Exactly. They're taking those ancient fears, those archetypes that have always been there, and giving them a 21st century twist.
Okay, so how does this new album, Digital Hull, fit into all of this? Is it like a continuation of that story or something totally new?
I think it's both. It builds on what they've done before, for sure, but it also feels like a step forward, musically and thematically.
And Heiter bis wolkig, that seems to be the key, right? That's the track everyone's talking about.
It's definitely the centerpiece, and for good reason. That combination of Doza Crew's sound with Kairam's vocals, man, it's different.
It's hypnotic, almost. And the lyrics, there's some of their most unsettling stuff yet.
It feels like a warning, like a glimpse into this future where technology has completely taken over.
Okay, and that brings us to the big question. Who is Kairam? Are they like part of the Doza Crew world? Are they a force for good or evil?
That's the mystery, isn't it? Even that podcast you found, they don't have much on Kairam. They're this enigma, and their lyrics in Heiter bis wolkig don't make things any clearer. They talk about being trapped in this net, about algorithms controlling our lives.
Chilling stuff, but also kind of beautiful. The way they sing it, it's like this siren song drawing us into this digital hellscape.
That's a really interesting point, the way their vocals weave in and out of Dozakru's harsher sound. It's like they're representing that seductive side of technology, the allure that pulls us in even though we know it might be dangerous.
Right. It's like they're saying technology isn't good or bad in itself, but it has this power to control us if we're not careful.
Okay, so we've got this intricate world built on folklore and tech, this enigmatic figure in Kyrem, and an album that's both familiar and totally new. Where do we even start with all this?
I think the best place to start is with Heiter itself. It's like the key to unlocking this new chapter in Doza Cruz's story. Once we understand that, we can start to see how it connects to the bigger picture. Okay, so Heiter wolkig, where do we even begin?
Yeah, even the title is weird, right?
Totally sunny to cloudy, sounds all happy-go-lucky, but the song itself...
The song is dark, man.
Exactly. It's like this bait and switch. They lure you in with that melody, all light and airy, and then bam, they hit you with these heavy truths about the digital world.
Okay, so lyrically speaking, what were some lines that really jumped out at you? The first few lines, man, they set the whole mood. I walk through the valleys, through the deep nights. Digital life shines brightly. Sometimes you ask yourself what counts. It's like right off there's this unease, this questioning of what's real, what matters in this tech-obsessed world.
And then later there's that line about collecting data day after day. Our being lies in the cloud. It's like we're becoming these digital ghosts, you know?
It's creepy, right? Like our physical bodies don't even matter anymore. It's all about the data.
Which, I mean, Doza Cruz is always playing with that.
Right.
Right? That line
Yeah.
between real and virtual, it's like their whole thing.
Totally. It's like they're trying to figure out, what does it even mean to be human in this increasingly digital world?
And it's not just about data, right? It's how tech shapes everything, how we see ourselves, how we relate to each other.
Yeah, totally. Like that line Kyra M sings, we hide behind filters, behind perfect pictures, behind a self we ourselves need to rediscover. It's calling out that whole fake online persona thing.
It's so true, though. That pressure to be perfect, to get those likes, it's exhausting. And it makes you feel so alone, even though you're supposedly connected to all these people.
It's a paradox, right? Technology promises us connection, but it often delivers the opposite.
And that's what Heiter walking nails, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying technology is evil, but they're making us think about the downsides.
The complexities, yeah, they're forcing us to confront that dark side.
Okay, there's this one line that really freaks me out. We wake up in this net, online algorithms dominate us. It's like we're in this digital prison, being controlled by code.
Total Matrix vibes, right? Like, we think we're making choices, but really these algorithms are pulling the strings.
It makes you feel powerless, you know? Like, what can we even do about it?
That's a good question, and I think it's one Doza Crew wants us to ask. And it makes me think about Kyrem. Their whole vibe in this song, it's so detached, almost ethereal.
It's like they're observing this digital hellscape from a distance, not trapped in it the way we are.
You're right, it's hard to pin down their perspective. Are they warning us? Mourning something lost? Or just like reporting on what's happening, this inevitable march of technology?
I gotta be honest, I'm obsessed with trying to figure out Kyrem. Like, who are they? What's their deal?
I know, right? Even that podcast, they barely mention Kyrem. It just adds to the mystery. But they do talk about Doza Crew escaping from a digital world in some of their older stuff.
Wait, yeah. I remember that they were trapped in some virtual reality thing. Gefangen Loop, I think it was.
The Fang and Loop, that's the one. The podcast, they kind of hinted that that experience might connect to what's happening in Heiter Wolking. Like, what if Doza Crew is being drawn back into that digital world?
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that. But it makes sense, right? Like maybe they're trying to warn us about how seductive technology can be, how it can pull you back in even after you've seen the dark side.
And maybe Kyrem represents that allure, the voice that whispers those promises of connection, escape, whatever it is we're searching for online.
Okay, my brain is officially melting. But it adds another layer, doesn't it? It's like we can never really escape the digital world. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
The question is, how do we engage with it without getting completely lost?
Exactly. And that brings us back to what we were talking about before, resilience, community. Those things are even more important now in this digital age.
Okay, but how do we even do that? It's easy to say be resilient, but in practice, how do we build those skills, those connections, when everything's pulling us in a million different directions?
Well, I think Digital Who actually offers some answers. If we look beyond Heiter Wolking, at the album as a whole, we start to see.
Okay, so Heiter wolkig, it's like a warning then
Right.
about getting sucked into this digital world. Like maybe even Doza Crew themselves are fighting that pull.
Yeah, I think that's a valid reading. But the rest of the album, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some glimmers of hope, ways to cope, maybe even pushback.
Okay, so where do we see that?
Well, take Shatten and Bisons, for example. It's
Yeah.
got a totally different vibe.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. It's way more chill, kind of melancholic even.
But there's this underlying strength, too, like finding your fitting in the darkness.
The lyrics talk about facing your shadows, right? Like literally confronting your fears.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging those dark parts of yourself, but not letting them control you. And what's interesting is Shatten and Bisons, it doesn't even mention technology directly.
So it's more like a metaphor then for dealing with any kind of inner turmoil.
I think so. It's Doza Crew reminding us that the battle isn't just out there in the digital world, it's also inside us.
Okay, I get that. But how do we actually do that? Like, how do you become more resilient?
Well, there's another track, Verborgine Melody, that one might hold a clue.
Over a Borgine melody. That one's almost like a celebration, isn't it?
It is. And the lyrics talk about finding beauty, connection in the most unexpected places. Like tuning into this hidden melody that's always there beneath the surface.
It's like even with all the digital noise, there's still magic in the world, right?
Right. And it might come from different places, nature, art, music, even just connecting with other people on a deeper level. It's about finding those things that nourish you, remind you what truly matters.
So it's like if Heiter wolkig is about losing yourself in the digital world, Verborgine melody is about finding your way back.
That's a perfect way to put it. And I think that idea, it runs through the whole album, even the darker tracks like Gefangen im Loop, Doza Crew shows us the dangers of technology, yeah. But they're also saying, hey, we have a choice in how we engage with it. We can find our own path.
That's a good reminder, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get swept up in it all,
Yeah.
Forget what's real, what's important.
It is, and that's what makes this album so powerful, I think. It's a call to action. Be more mindful, build that resilience, find those genuine connections.
And find that Verborgine melody, right?
Exactly. It's in there somewhere for all of us.
Man, this deep dive has been wild. From those Ostfriesland landscapes to this whole digital whole thing, it's a lot to process.
It is. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface. Doza Crew, their music, it makes you think, It's not about easy answers. It's about asking the right questions.
And maybe that's the point, right? To keep exploring, keep questioning, even when it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Embrace the mystery, the complexity. That's where the real growth happens.
All right. Everyone listening out there, you heard it here first. This Doza Crew deep dive, it's just the beginning. Keep listening, keep thinking, and who knows? Maybe you'll find your own Verborgine melody along the way.